Hi, I'm Joe Hello, President and CEO of Polaris, and this is my new apprentice / student, Ernie Bondi, not to be mistaken with Blair Bondi, which we'll see Blair a little later. He's my monitor engineer. We're going to be working on a couple things today, getting through Pro Tools and digital recording stuff. So let's jump into it. Sacrifice. So how was last week? What was going on?
We actually did most of the chapters here last time.
Yeah.
And then I made my notes, and it was the plugins.
Yeah. What was your take on the plugin scenarios? You went with like Audio Suite versus regular plugins.
So yeah, on my own, I didn't know what Audio Suite was, right?
Right.
So Audio Suite will you select the clip you want to apply the plugin, and then you can listen to it as you change it, and then you hit render, and it renders it onto the clip.
What would be a good scenario that we'd use that with? Why would we use Audio Suite to commit to like a set of plugins, like on the actual waveform? Why would we want to commit to that?
Because it's quicker. I'm not really sure.
Is it quicker? Actually, like putting a plugin on versus selecting it, tweaking it, and then
it might.
Think about people that don't have an HD rig, like yourself. Like, do you ever run out of plugin space?
I haven't.
You haven't.
But it could save space, right?
It could absolutely save plugin processing. So, one good thing that you can use it for is actually processing your plugins if you want to commit to it. What the fuck is going on there? If you want to commit to the actual plugin, then you save it. I would definitely save a playlist of the original. Like we were talking upstairs while we were having lasagna. I would definitely commit to something, but actually save a playlist. It's always going to be in your clip list.
Right.
You'll always be able to find the original, but it's hard to find, really.
Okay.
So what you would do is you would save, if we go into Pro Tools here.
I know there's the clip list, and then there's the groups.
The groups really don't save anything pertinent to the actual waveforms. The groups are just saving what you create as a group. So let's go to one of my mix templates here for a second. Just so we're on the same page. This basically over here, before I commit that, I can select this wave and see that it's Kyle Vox 01. What I would do is I would save a duplicate of this, Kyle Vox 01, boom, and I can recall it easily by going to my playlist. It's sitting right down there. So then when I go to this vocal, what up, people? I can actually process it on an Audio Suite, whatever I want to do with it, process it, but I can always go back to the original.
The duplicate's there.
But in this case, you'll see
the waveform change.
You'll see, let's just do an EQ audio strip, and then we can undo it. So we'll just do that, we'll render it. Notice that I created a new one. This render is now here, where the original is there. But I have two originals because I've saved a duplicate of that, just so I can access it quicker.
Okay.
I'm gonna undo that, but that's the move in regards to, if you want to Audio Suite anything, your best scenario is definitely playlisting it, Audio Suiting it, and then you're good. Okay. But you know what? That's like, you'll find a reason to do it. You'll definitely find a reason to do it. There's always a million ways to skin a cat. So,
Definitely.
I feel like it's out there. So, let's get into what we want to work on today.
Musician likes help. has that clicks, because it clicks, maybe you want to position it in a way where it picks up
So guitar, for instance,
electric.
if I
or
want it
acoustic.
acoustic, let's talk about a timbered instrument such as the acoustic guitar.
Right.
Mic placement on an acoustic guitar, you can have multiple mics on it.
Yep.
You can have a single room mic on it.
Yep.
What are you after as a producer engineer? I want to capture this instrument and have some options later. You might not be the mixing engineer. You might be just the tracking engineer.
Okay.
What is if there's a producer involved, he's going to have a say on what they want to capture out of this
Right.
book, out of this, musical instrument. So a good idea is, one, we have to look at phase. We want to make sure that we're phase aligned.
Right.
We use our ear, put something out of phase, line it up with your main mic. So let's say my acoustic's here. I'm going to find that nice warm body of the timbre of the instrument, full sound wave coming out of the box, out of the soundboard.
Right.
And I'm going to capture that here. My secondary mic is going to be a little bit further back, maybe by the neck. Maybe we're going after the string sound.
Right.
But we're still going to hear the dominant sound as well. So we want to kind of make sure those are medium blend working good together, even though they will be somewhat isolated, because we're probably going to use a hypercardioid or a cardioid mic up here for the strings just to get the string sound. But the difference between if this one's back here and this one's this forward, we're going to have a little bit of phase alignment difference, right? In the string sound. And it's good that this one's a little bit ahead of the body because it's natural. But then we want to go and introduce a room mic 5 feet over there. It's important to take this one, put it out of phase, or put that one out of phase, and line it up to where it cancels itself out almost.
Yeah.
Cool. Flip the phase again. Okay, we're rocking. That's an easy way without going too crazy in the program, because we can always delay something. We can always visually see it. But let's get close as engineers. It takes us 5 seconds. Phase flip.
So,
Move the mic. Got it. It's canceled out. Phase flip again. Now we know that they're very close to being in phase. And that's a start. So that's our starting point.
if there wasn't a phase flip on the mic.
No, it would be on the console.
Okay.
Every console should have a phase flip. So for instance, these racked quad 8 preamps, these are the preamps.
Yeah.
This will be my phase flip.
Okay.
So you can activate it and hit the phase flip by just one click of a button.
Okay.
And then my 48 volts is right here.
Right.
And then here's my pad. So we start off at minus 50, 40, or the opposite way. Mic, really, you want to work backwards, because if you start it on mic level, which is our 0,
Right.
then you're pretty much like full up, right? So you can definitely, if you don't want to have the speakers on, because it'll be really loud. So I always start backwards. I'll start from minus 50, see the gain, and work my way on it. If I'm in the studio with the actual quad 8 console, I keep the fader down and I just adjust it, readjust it, keep it muted in the program, in the Pro Tools until I get the right level. But you could see it on the meters. So you use the meters in analog,
Right.
and then they convert over to the digital after going through the interface. So I have a heads-up display VU meters that I can look at, where in this case, I don't have VU meters on here.
Right.
I have to rely on the Pro Tools.
Okay.
Ish, right? So you basically can guesstimate where a vocal or a kick drum or some kind of instrument is coming in versus a vocal, and you can get a sweet spot. If we're using a Neumann versus another like a dynamic microphone, we can guesstimate where we want to be. But basically, not to go too far into it, that was a big thing with microphone placement. We really had to focus in on making sure things are phase aligned, right? If we're using multiple mics.
Definitely.
And capturing the instrument, capturing what we're trying to capture. We learned about Munson's theory. We learned about
a few other theories that helped us really concentrate on like what the sound is doing and why these microphones are capturing certain things, why we have certain roll-offs and polar patterns on microphones, why they're called condenser microphones, which is what? Why are they called condenser microphones?
Well, one, they're taking that phantom power, so they have a component in there.
Which is called a what?
Capacitor.
Yeah, so the capacitor
holds the charge.
Is holding the charge so that it's consistent current. And what did what did they used to be called? Those capacitors.
Condensers.
Yeah. So that's in essence why condensers are called condensers, is because they used to call capacitors condensers, and now we
just stuck.
Yeah, it's stuck into there since the beginning. So real cool. Like I thought we did great on the previous chapters. Tracking, obviously that's like a repetitive thing. If you're a tracking engineer, you're consistently playlisting, loop recording, punch recording. You're going through the movements, and you want to be as fast as possible in order to be a good engineer and keep the artist rolling.
Yeah.
That just takes practice. There's no book that we can magically become. You can know the functionalities.
Yeah.
You can know how to go into certain things quick. There's 5 different ways to go into this kind of recording, and there's 3 different ways to do this. There's definitely shortcuts. Even with hitting the record button, there's multiple ways to do it just on the keyboard. There's 3 ways. I can hit record on the keypad. I can hit command spacebar, and I can also hit F12 to start recording immediately.
Yeah.
And then besides actually going to it, clicking record, and then clicking record.
Yeah.
And then if you have the capability of a digital mouse, there's always a record button on that. So whether you have like a, a Avid My Mix, or the euphonic stuff that's now called Avid My Mix, that digital moving faders. It's like a mouse, but you actually have faders and stuff. We have one at the studio. It works good for automation and stuff, but they also have record on it. All right, so we got into intro for Pro Tools. That was cool. You scored good on your test. What was the test? 90%?
I believe out of 90.
Yeah, we were 1 click short of the big time, I think, for that one.
That was the one with the grid question. Remember?
Yeah, I wrote them an email in regards to that. That was faulty. So we're in Pro Tools Basics, and then we just finished that.
We did that one,
and then we were just getting into plugins.
I did the plugins.
Did you do it?
On my own, yeah.
How did it go?
That one was fine. There was it was kind of questions about like who made what. It wasn't.
Do you have your notes on it? You want to review it? Like
it wasn't.
What did you get on the test?
100, but it wasn't specific. It wasn't like, what does this plugin do? You know what I mean? So.
Well, it wouldn't be it would basically be the foundation of it, like why you're using certain automated plugins, why you're doing RTAS versus TBM, or nowadays it's AAX versus what is it? What's the regular version? They don't call it RTAS anymore. Real time audio suite. Click. I have to click this EQ, and it's got to be this EQ. No, I'm going to go to the EQ and go to the EQ and fucking turn it. That makes it less money. That makes it more clear. I know where it's at. I know where I'm going with it. But yeah, you do have to experiment when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to just know this frequency makes every vocal muddy, or over time you'll look at similarities like, oh yeah, and you'll start going there automatically.
Right.
So listen to the song. Listen to comparable songs. Listen to
that's a good idea.
Things in that genre to make sure you're on the right path. Like, oh, that's the snare drum that fucking Imagine Dragons came up with. I'm on the right path because it's similar music, but it's going to be my own flavor. It's going to be my
Right.
own twist. So, you know, you're not copying it, but you're, of course, looking for some kind of inspiration or like even reassurance
Right.
that you're on a good path. Levels. This is the process of leveling out faders and getting a good relationship between instruments. All right, the levels you set initially will change as you move through the mixing process,
Yeah.
rather. So don't worry about making these perfect. They're never going to be perfect. That's why you don't automate right away, because it's committing to an automation that you're just going to fucking have to redo.
Right.
So relax. Get through the phases. It's going to all evolve, but you definitely have to start playing around to make it right. So you're going to want to start fucking with the phase. You're going to want to start delaying stuff. You're going to want to start, adding effects in there. You're going to pan this thing.
Right.
So you're going to want to manipulate it. Panning's huge. Panning makes everything wider. It makes it, like, especially with guitars, doing like at 11 o'clock and at 21 o'clock, that alone will just make it wider. So taking that same signal, process it, delay one side back a bit, and pan it slightly. I mean, you can make things wider by doing those kind of things. They make plugins that do the same thing that I'm talking about, but it's now just a plugin.
Right.
Wide, make it wide.
Oh.
But what it's doing is it's probably taking one side and delaying it back, or panning slightly and delaying back, or putting one side out of phase, and then it's like, whoa, this is fucked. So yeah, there's plugins that are doing this for us, but the school that we grew up with in analog was we did it by actually doing it and processing it.
Right.
Multiple things to create one end picture. Now we can just click a button and rotate it, and it works.
Right.
Yeah. Pan loss is a common principle in audio engineering. It states that relative level will change from -3 dB to 0 dB as the mono signal is panned from center to left or right. And this sounds natural. What does that mean to you?
I've heard I know what it's talking about.
So the idea is that when
When it's
one direction's signal level is left and right with the pan pot, it perceives, or our perceived loudness will stay the same regardless of the latitude. This is important because you need to be conscious of when you're panning. So the principle of audio engineering, it states that relative level will change from -3 to 0 as a mono signal is panned from center to hard left or hard right. So when you hard left, hard right, it actually makes it gain.
But perceptually, not in reality.
Exactly. So our ears will separate that more, right? And it's all to do with the way phase and sound works. The two primary reasons to use EQ are because you want to accentuate something, so adding a frequency in there, or minimize something, subtracting.
Right.
I always subtract it. I always usually start an EQ with subtracting. I like to take away what it doesn't need,
Right.
and that in turn enhances what I want.
And then,
So I'll notch out stuff.
yeah.
Notch is a scary word because people that notch out is like a notch out. I'll basically notch out stuff, but not as drastic as an actual notch.
Okay.
But I'll do a narrow cue
Right.
and find what I don't want. Not overly take it out, but really pinpoint something that's fucking me up. Like a MIDI instrument or like a keyboard, certain 1000 or 1.6, area notched down for that I can actually hear the key, the digital key.
Right.
It's faulty. But yeah, you can definitely use shelving. You can use notches to take stuff out and then enhance wide so that it sonically makes sense with phase.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? EQ before compression? We will stay out of that debate. So, what do you think? Compress before EQ, EQ before compress.
I think just as from a feeling standpoint, compress before EQ. And the reason why I'm feeling that way is because compression kind of feels like it normalizes the sound. Oh wait, like volume wise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it brings it up. It brings up the floor noise, but it also squashes down any velocities that are peaking and
Right.
stuff that are
So
just really.
if you were to apply equalization after that, then it seems like, okay, now you're working with a more consistent signal. Whereas if you do it before, you're compressing over it on your equalization. So
That's fair enough.
it could.
I think a light compression, not overdoing it,
Right.
and then a quick EQ, and then dynamic compression is like really where I go. I tend to really dynamic compress things.
Okay.
I'll compress slightly, EQ, and then I have my dynamic compressor sitting there
Right.
ready to go because that's where I really hone in, and it still gives me some looseness, but it also gives me that really pinpoint action that I can take away certain things at a certain threshold, right? And still make this song dynamic, meaning like, you know, it's not just fucking here.
Right.
It's still flowing, but as it's flowing, frequencies are being adjusted to compensate for that boost or that attenuation, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That seems like a kind of a middle ground almost.
Yeah, it's a smart way of doing it.
Finding that.
Okay, so a good question to ask yourself is, why am I using this? Why am I using a compressor? Why am I using an EQ?
Right.
Some engineers use compression on the way the console works, like analog consoles. Basically, you have a compressor on every channel, certain like Neve or SSL, you have a compressor on every channel. It's right here. Click it in. You would set a ratio and sacrifice it. Other use compression. I was like, they use it sparingly. Again, it's like you're the engineer. You got to figure it out. If you're going to compress everything just to compress it because they say to compress it,
Right.
or if you actually want to listen why you're compressing it to level that artist out slightly. You know, you use some lower ratios, like a 2-to-1 ratio, and then go into more a little 4-to-1, maybe for vocals, something they will want to tighten up a little more. You understand what 4-to-1 means and 2-to-1 means?
I was just reading that.
So
For every.
you have a sound wave.
Right.
You have a compressor setting at a threshold.
Yeah.
Every time it hits that threshold, it's going to compress. Every 2, it's going to output 1.
Right.
So anything over that threshold, it's going to start slamming down, and every 2 of those equal 1.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If you say something like, "Oh, this is heavily compressed," that could mean 1, your threshold is
Too low.
too low, and the ratio is too high,
Yeah.
or your threshold is set at a reasonable level, but again, your threshold or your ratio is too high. So if your ratio is too high, it's gonna really compress beyond that threshold and give you that kind of over compressed sound.
Yeah, of course. So you have an 8-to-1 ratio, or all skulls on, all buttons in, and you're fucking slamming it.
Right.
It's going to sound compressed, which is cool sometimes. But, you know, a distressor, you can fucking send it, and it sounds great. But depends on what you're going for, right?
That's true.
It depends on the instrument or what it is. Vocals, you can really hear an over compressed vocal and be like, hey, it's a little over impressed, but it's cool.
Is that what gives you your telephone sound?
No, that's an EQ.
Okay.
Taking out low pass, high pass,
Frequencies.
and going right into the center. Why does the telephone? Why did Alexander Graham Bell pick the frequency that travels
Because
through the
it,
phone line?
it mostly comes down to cost, really.
Which
Because,
were? Remember that?
Is it the 35,000?
That's what our ear resonates at.
Right. It's not 1,000, is it?
It's in that area. So those frequencies,
Or perceived.
they were perceived louder
Right.
over a longer period of time when people talked on the phone.
Right.
Those were the dominant frequencies that basically travel the furthest and
With the least amount of power.
energy to make it. Yes,
Right.
exactly. So cheapy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they did have to do scientific experiments to figure it out, but
Yeah.
it was in order to save money.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it took less energy to send those frequency bands from here to there. Now our phones are a little more clear.
Yeah.
We use that's Alexander Graham Bell in the fucking
Yeah.
30s, right? Right? Wasn't it 30
Yeah.
something? So now we obviously have headphones that we're listening to our phones, like it's through the internet. But back then, they were worried about that, so the telephone sound
Yeah.
that you're referring to
It's because the frequency.
is because they were squashed to those frequencies only. Everything else was fucked off, and they sent that.
So
that
is that
port.
like if you imagine some announcer from the 50s or on the radio, that sound that they sound like, why do they all kind of sound the same? It's because like the technology just was only picking up certain frequencies.
Very narrow banded
Right.
because we didn't have the technology to send it from point A to point B at high HD quality.
Or like
We didn't have the internet.
the Zeppelin. Oh, the humanity.
Yeah.
The way they sound.
Yeah,
It's not how they talk.
and even the speaker boxes,
right.
not even close to what we have now. They're fucking like
Yeah.
they're horns and fucking basically. There's faulty.
Yeah.
It was the beginning.
It was,
In the beginning, the world was empty.
had black and white TV.
Effects processing. An effect is anything that we add to the signal path that alters the sonic content of the signal going through it.
Right.
Okay? So technically, even though we keep dynamic and equalization separate, they're still technically an effect, if that makes sense. What they're referring to is basically coursing, flanging, reverb, delays, phasing, remodulations, harmonics, doublers, all that shit.
Right.
So that's what we would call an effect in our world. Typically, these things are used in conjunction with an aux send. So it's not 100% on the plug on the channel. We're now using our send to go to an aux and adjusting that and adjusting the send,
Yeah.
and then we can automate easily.
Right.
Right.
Because when you use a send, you can adjust how much of the signal is actually being processed by that effect.
Yes, which is cool.
But can't you do that in the plugin itself?
Of course, there's a wet and dry in most plugins, right? So say you put the plugin right on here. So I'm going to go to
You did an insert.
I'm going to put an insert of a reverb. We call a reverb an effect, correct?
Yeah.
There's this wet and dry
Right.
that's basically emulating it.
How
But
much is singing?
I basically what you're doing now is you're losing a certain percentage of that signal instead of gaining it up. So 13% of it is the wet reverb, and it's how to automate this is a lot more trickier, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I thought maybe you couldn't automate this.
Of course you can. There's a special button here called automation to your plugin. So it's an automation button. So basically what you want this plugin to automate. Okay, so plugin automation. So you can click
You can.
wet dry,
Right.
click it there, click OK.
Yeah.
Now, in this tab,
this comes out, wet and dry. Now I can draw it in with the pencil.
Yep. A lot of points.
In and out, in and out.
Yeah.
Right? I can do that with anything. I can bypass it. Now there'll be something that shows up that says master bypass. Bypass. No bypass. Sacrifice. No sacrifice. Right? Easy. Simple. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The important thing to remember here is that the effects are magnified in a mastering process. So just when you thought your reverb sounded perfect, you send it to the mastering engineer and your vocal comes back sounding like the Taj Mahal. Dial things down for mastering process in anticipation of the master. So, tricky, right?
Yeah.
Mastering, a lot of times you're going to put a reverb over the whole track. Things will get amplified. You're dipping things out to make it sound clear. They're optimizing the loudness. So yes, there is a fucking process that could sound a little weird, could sound different than the mix. That's the learning curve of who you're using for mastering and understanding their process
Right.
and compensating for it. They got to do their job. Automation, sacrification is another useful tool for creating real-time changes to the way the plug-in motorized piece of gear works. So like if you have automated faders, you're going to automate it with automated faders. If you have a Yukon Mix Pro, whatever, then you're going to go on that motorized fader, automate whatever you need to, save it, and roll. Or you're going to draw it in, like we just did there. It's very important. Bouncing, what do you do? We understand what bouncing is. We're going to bounce the stereo track. We're going to bounce our mix to a stereo track so that it renders our mix and all the plugins that are in it. You understand that, right? That's what bouncing is. There's offline bouncing, and then there's basically the old school way of bouncing, which is listening to it from front to back. Problem is with offline bouncing is that if you select the wrong button and hit the wrong output, you will not hear what you want to hear. So, for instance, if I click bounce and I have stereo left, right, but I had 1 and 2 selected by accident, I'm not going to hear anything. You have to make sure your output is what your bounce source is. Okay?
Yeah.
That happens. Waveform. You can add an MP3 as a fun thing to send an email. 24-bit, 48K, because you're sending it to a video team. Done. So making sure that you have the right settings is very important. At this point, the offline bounce is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's fast.
I just do that.
What are these all about?
This is it's a review of what they already talked about.
Oh, do we click on that?
You can,
Do you usually click on it?
yeah. So it gives you kind of an idea.
Oh, a pre-test.
Of, what questions.
We never do those. Markers in Pro Tools allow the user to organize a session and easily navigate through the sections of the song.
True.
File management refers to where the .ptx file is stored, keeping all files associated with the Pro Tools session together, where the audio files are stored, all of the above.
All the above.
Okay. A good rule of thumb in a mixed situation is to set yourself up with a fluid creative function.
True.
Okay. That makes sense.
Creative.
No, I got it right. You lose. Alright. They really want us to know. Mixing for the mastering engineer.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Looks like he's on bias peak. Fuck is this? What kind of sacrifice is that? Ableton? What is that?
I don't know.
What kind of sacrifice? Okay.
Counts. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice.
Windows look different.
Yeah, maybe. It's faulty. Okay. As has been stated earlier, subtitles changes on track-by-track basis will affect sonic quality of other tracks or the mix as a whole. This train of thought, the mastering process, has direct effect on our mix. So yes, the final stamp is going to affect our mix.
Right.
There are things to be conscious of as you are mixing that allow the mastering engineer to do his or her job, because we're in 2017, there's some amazing women and men that mix and master.
Of course.
We are equal, we are all people, and no matter, women have certain sensitivities, natural phenomenon in their ears that they resonate a little more at 2.5 and 3.5 than us.
I was just gonna say something like that.
Tell me about it. Especially pregnant women.
Really?
My wife, when she was pregnant, fucking 2.5K, jackhammer in her ear.
Must be a
Gotta watch out for that for live concerts.
Must be a biological thing.
It's what they would call a natural phenomenon.
Maybe a baby's cry resonates better at
Maybe.
that frequency.
What is mastering? Audio mastering is the process of taking the final mix down, bounds, and preparing the master copy from which all duplications will be made. In the early days, this was all done at one time. A band would perform into a horn that transfers the audio into a groove.
Play your song. Here we go.
So this metal disc was the master. That's crazy. So the limitations of vinyl as a listening medium meant that there needed to be control over the dynamic range of what was being sent to the disc.
Oh,
What does that mean?
You wanna know a little
Vinyl.
fact?
What? Go
So,
ahead.
I think in Russia or something like that, there was a ban on vinyl discs, and so the way they could sell bootleg copies of music, they would take X-ray film and they would copy to the X-ray film as a disc, and then you could play that on a record player.
Oh wow.
So there's
One thing with vinyl is that it's actual grooves. So the wider the grooves, the louder it was, but the shorter the songs have to be because you can only fit so many songs.
Right.
So you want to bang an album, it's fucking loud because
right.
that's the way fucking sound
So
works.
they're like
Wide,
huge.
not
I know.
no. You like compared to like if we had a microscope, they'd be
Right.
here versus here. You know, a needle.
Yeah.
So that would depict where our song would be shorter, but it would be loud as fuck. Bang, right?
Yeah.
So, frequencies response is affected as well. So, the deeper the groove, the better the low frequency, of course, because they're wider and deeper. So, wider is loud, deeper is lower. These things had to be planned out in advance. When we finally had a microphone that could record a broad range of frequencies. You know? And the ability to multi-track, of course. We needed to be sure we were within the limitations of the medium. We also found out that using a compressor or an EQ on the overall mixdown improves the way the final product sounded. This process has become science as a good mastering engineer can sense the minuscule changes in a sonic difference. We will take a basic look at the mastering in a later chapter. Preparing your mix for the final master. Let's take a look at the chain of events that happen for a song to end up on a CD player, or most likely your iPod or phone. An artist writes a song. Band, solo, artist, electronic music producer. They write the song. The artist finds a way to get the song heard by the right people.
That's something that I don't understand apparently.
A record company deems the song something that money can be made from. Yay! Don't get too excited. It's usually the record company that makes the money, not the artist. But most of the time, you know, it is what it is. A deal is struck, and the record company agrees to finance the production of the song.
Don't get your hopes up.
Here's where you come in. The studio tracks the sound, which is sometimes done by dedicated tracking engineers. This could be, you could also mix the song, and a mastering engineer masters the song. Sends it off for duplication.
Have you done all
Of course.
of those steps, I'm assuming?
Of course.
Yeah. Do you prefer one over the other?
Final mixing, tweaking, and mastering. I'm gonna do all the track. I fucking.
I guess that would be the most tedious, right?
I hate people. I hate people. I don't hate people. That's broad statement.
I get it.
Okay, look. Let's be real about the subject.
Alright.
If you're gonna desensitize to the song, if you're gonna desensitize to the song and listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again,
Yeah.
then how the fuck are you gonna mix it? Because you're tired. By the time you're done tracking it, you're like, fuck this.
Heard it too many times.
I'm done. That's where I come in. Someone tracks it, someone edits it, I'll mix it, and then I'll master it later, or I'll have someone else master it.
Yeah.
Or someone else will mix it, and then I'll final mix it and master it, is most likely what will happen. I just don't have time. I'm busy. I'm doing shit. You know what I mean? Look at my life. You know my life. Fucking one day we're here, next day I'm in LA trying to fucking advance a show and
Yeah.
do the halftime show, you know, at the
Yeah.
Clippers game. That's
You
my
gotta
next
go.
mission. I gotta go Sunday I gotta do jaw roll and Shanti, and then I go out to do the Clippers game halftime show with Kyle, which would be sweet. I did the creative on it. I think it'll be sweet. I just gotta get a bunch of stuff approved. Okay, cedars are made up by fucking duplication and replication process. So if you're bootleg, you're gonna do a replication. If they're good, they're gonna stamp it off one master, then they're gonna duplicate or one or the other. I went to a duplicating company and it was cool. It's kind of cool.
Where at?
Duplicators.
Where are they?
Duplication. In Toronto.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. There are general guidelines now that you can definitely get into for the optimum what you're doing. You know, CD quality and or making a DVD, whatever you're doing with this, making a soundtrack music on a DVD, or if it's going on CD and on iTunes, you know, you set yourself up. Clipping is bad. No clipping. That's bullshit. Clipping's good. Clipping's good. That's what we live in. Sorry. I hate it, but it's good. The hip hop guys love it. Everything's got a clip. In mastering, everything has to fucking clip. Send it. Clip it. Clip the drums, clip everything. That's what it is nowadays. It's fucking what it is, dude. It's bad, but that's what we're doing.
It's bad
So,
to do it.
What are we doing? You know?
I don't know.
We're gonna clip it. We're gonna clip the drums. We're gonna make it sound fucking distorted. That's what the world we live in. This is the shit that we live in.
There's other ways to make it distortion sound.
No. Clip it. Clip it. Fucking send it. That's what they want.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't make the rules. So basically clip everything. No, when you're tracking, you want to be at the yellow, you want to be nominal, and then compress it, EQ it, and then we can bring everything to a nominal level after. When you're sending it to a mastering engineer, you definitely want to be minus 6 dB is a good thought, you know.
On an individual track, what do you aim for?
You want to be touching yellow. Depends on what it is. You know, if it's a vocal, you want to have a nice clear vocal touching yellow, nice healthy preamp. For a hi-hat, maybe you want to be a little lower to just have pick up a certain sound that you like. Could be ambient, overheads could be slammed. So it depends on what you're after, man. It totally depends on what you're after. So there's no real rule, but you don't want to clip everything unless you're hip hop. They clip everything. Clip the drums. All of it. All the drums are clipped.
Okay.
Under the melody, clip.
Yeah.
Check plugins for clipping as well. So the plugin will clip. You'll see a red dot here, and you'll also see a red clip line here that you can investigate and say, "Oh, it's clipped. Plugin clipped. Cool." So that's a cool thing. It is common to throw a limiter on the master if you are burning a reference for the client. Why would you do that? You would want to bring it up so that they feel like it's almost like a master. So it's like the loudness compared to this song that you hear on the radio compared to your song, they're the same level. It's at a higher level. So your mix is actually -6. You're going to use that limiter to bring it up so that it sounds like it's mastered.
So what does the limiter do?
It basically brings up the floor level again. So limiter just basically squashes everything down. So there's the maximum that you have standard. And you also have a bunch of other ones that you can use.
So lower your max dB.
So maxim basically lowers, it takes away room they have and brings it up. If you set your ceiling to like -1, it'll limit and attenuate anything that goes over that, but it'll bring up your max RMS. So when we're listening to this song,
well, maybe a little baby, I don't want to lie. I know when you text me, girl, I don't always reply. Well, you're not an angel either, you can't even. Hey! Yes! Hey, I spy with my little line. I spy with my.
you understand what that's doing?
It's almost no. I can hear what it's doing. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I don't want to lie. I know when you text me, girl, I don't always reply. Well, you're not an angel either, you can't even.
So I'm taking out the floor noise, the blank space.
Yes. Hey, I spy with my little line.
This is attenuating
with my little
when
line.
we're over it.
Hey.
He's getting louder, but it's not giving you that clip sound.
No,
As it
until you get here.
I know when you text me, girl, I don't always reply. Well, you're not an angel either, you can't even.
Right? So I'm taking out everything.
Yes. Hey, I spy with my little line.
This is just bringing up the loudness,
I spy with my little line.
and anything that clips above it will be attenuated. I'm minusing 6. I'm taking away the headroom. That's all that's doing. It's like a compressor that's on 10-to-1 ratio.
Right. It's
It's basically a compressor. It's taking away floor noise. It's bringing up floor noise, but it's taking away any peaks and squashing that headroom and making this louder in essence.
it's by reducing the headroom, it makes it sound louder.
It makes it louder because it's taking away any blank, pointless room
Right.
squashing it,
Okay, so
and in turn bringing it all up.
it does amplify.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Effects too loud. Because the mastering engineer runs your song through a series of compressors, the detail of your effects are magnified. Remember to account for this. This is a common rookie mistake. Sometimes you'll want dramatic effects, other times you'll want subtle. A good rule of thumb is to get your effects sounding the way you want them and then back them off. Back them off like 0.5 or minus 2 dB.
Right.
Not much to pull things back, like, you know what I mean? Just a little bit. And that will make sense later on. Check your mix in mono. You'd be surprised how often the top 40 song can be played in mono. FM radio plays in stereo only if you're in range. Once you go beyond a certain range, your song is mixed to mono automatically. Check and make sure there's no drastic mono change. Very important. Check mono. Sacrifice. In earlier chapters, we have talked in length about format and sample rates and bit depths. So we understand why we're sending out certain formats. AIFF, WAVE, and you want to stay in the same sample rate and bit depth unless directed specifically. CD standard is still 16-bit 44.1. However, you don't just jump down to 24-bit 48K. If you change sample rates and bit depth, you are effectively losing information about your audio. So before you dumb it down, find out where it's going. And you always want to have the max. And dither is basically putting a hover of conversion to dither it down from 24-bit to 16-bit, so you don't hear the dither.
I heard that word before. I don't know.
Okay. If any of these suggestions sound like Greek to you, that's okay. We'll shed some light on the subject as we move forward. Might be Greek. 48K, 24-bit. Why do we record in 44.1? Why did they come up with that standard, anyways?
That's so.
A man called
Is it Nyquist?
Nyquist. The old Nyquist.
Like, our hearing range goes up to 22K hertz, kilohertz.
20 to 22,000 hertz.
Right. Now, in order to capture all of that, and because the theory is like, it's the
Nyquist came up with the theory to double in digital our human hearing, which was 20 to 22K.
right.
He doubled it and said, if you want to record digitally, you got to double the human hearing bandwidth in order to capture it and guesstimate the steps. When we went from 8-bit to 16-bit,
Right.
it was the in-between steps of the digital, right? So like left to right was our sample rate, and in between the stairs of the binary code, ones and zeros,
Yeah.
was the bit depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guessing those numbers, essentially.
How accurate is the curve going to be?
Mm-hmm. The curvation.
The way
Very deep stuff, very important. Good audio talk there, man. You're getting it. You know what I mean? It's very important. It's understanding
And then-
why a sound wave is now converted to digital and why it's important to have a good converter.
Why
And
is it 44.1? The 1 is like the guard band I just was looking at my notes.
tell me about it. Go.
That's all I remember. It's like, that was when I was talking about a low pass or high pass. It kind of gives you that, as it approaches the
Sacrification.
the like event horizon. as it approaches the area between going into the wraparound area, you know,
Yeah.
it kind of gives you a little bit more.
Just a little bit of push.
That little guard. It gives you guard against wrapping around
Yeah.
further. So it's double plus, the little area.
Yeah. Yeah. Is what it is. But that's where we're at. And now we have the capability of recording at 32-bit, like 24 true bit, but like 32-bit floating,
Right.
which allows us not to be clipping plugins and clipping in the program, which is cool. But now we can go up to 192. We can go up even further, I guess, now. Great. It's geek stuff. Oh, shit. Okay, so a or un blank is anything you add to your signal path that changes the sonic characteristics of the audio signal.
An effect.
Getting a rough mix together can be done fairly quickly by adjusting the level and the blank of your song, the level and compression, the compression and EQ, the effects and automation, the level and panning. Getting a rough mix together can be done fairly quickly by adjusting compression and EQ, level and compression, effect and automation. So what's a fast way of really
From what we've been talking about, it sounds like it should be compression and EQ.
getting a rough mix together with compression and EQ of your song?
But then again, levels are important. But is that what they're trying to ask?
Getting a rough mix together can be done fairly quickly
A rough mix, I'd say compression and EQ. If I was
of your song.
If I was thinking about a mix, I'd say compression and EQ.
If you're thinking of a quickly adjusting the compressor and EQ, quickly adjusting the level and panning, these are the ones we're up against, right? This doesn't make sense, level and compression. Maybe.
This is
Effects and automation, that's timely.
You wouldn't do automation. I don't think so. For quick, automation doesn't seem like it'd be that quick.
Okay, let's go with it.
It's like, I don't know. Like maybe.
Compression is multiplicative,
It's
adaptive, subtractive, confusing.
So
Confusing.
it's multiplicative.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Would you stake your life on it?
Because it uses a ratio for 1, like 4 to 1, 8 to 1.
Yeah.
And because I read that.
Good point.
I did read it.
Two general ways to use an EQ are additive and subjective.
Oh. See?
Objective and subjective. Additive and subtractive.
Additive and subtractive.
Yeah, tricky.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh. This
Ooh.
one.
Ooh.
Which one?
Ah.
I.O.
Renaming the buses in
Yeah.
Pro Tools is done in the I.O.
Yeah.
Good form.
What one was it?
Level and panning. Yeah, I know that one. It's fast.
Level and panning?
You can. We talked about it in our
Yes.
headphones. Like level and panning, you can definitely get somewhere because the EQ is already done with your mics, your layout, the voice that you're recording, the mic that you're using, the preamps that you're using. So you can get a rough mix real quick by leveling, spreading things.
I'm just panning it because
Because
that other work is already done.
it's there, but then to perfect the mix, you have to go on
Right.
EQ and adapt to it. So that's fine. We'll get it on the main one. That's fine. I wanted to just get that one on. Yeah, no, think about this, man. Like when we're panning,
That's why I do
panning the toms, panning the overheads,
Yeah.
all of that is in process of a fast mix and taking down the overheads a bit. Then we're going to start getting into the mix. You know, that's a fast way of dialing in. That's good. I'm glad that we worked that